If you're a woman or you know a woman, this interview is going to captivate you because today I had the opportunity to speak with Laura from Athena DAO. This is a decentralized science DAO which is focused exclusively on women's healthcare and reproductive research. This is one of the most underserviced areas in all of academic research, despite women making up, well, half of the population. This interview was a really fun one to record, so thank you, Laura. We talked about a lot of different things, such as the total addressable market here, how much this research actually could be valued at, the governance token behind Athena DAO ATH. We also talked about artificial wombs and how they might play a role in our colonization of Mars. You're going to want to stick around for this. Where did you guys come up with the name for Athena's DAO, Athena DAO?
Let's start with the fact that we thought it would be cool to be something out of Greek Roman culture. So Greco-Roman culture and goddesses, right? So Venus came up, but Venus was too much of a relation to the racer. I was thinking of Venus Williams, everybody was thinking the racer. And then one of the very early contributors, and she actually is with Molecule, she said, Athena. I'm like, yes, all of us were really into it. And it was perfect because if you think of it, she's the goddess of war and wisdom. And to work in women's health, you have to be ready to battle because it's always an uphill battle. And wisdom, well, it's just a great also attribute to have.
Yeah, you cannot go wrong with wisdom. Wisdom is definitely power. So I think that's a perfect choice. I love that everyone just got right on board. They were like, yes, Athena. We'll name it after Athena. I'm curious, what is your background in it? What wisdom and power did you bring into this DAO?
So I started my career in something completely different in fashion. I think obviously it's a very, very insane road that I took to arrive here. But I started as a fashion editor many years ago. And when I lived in Canada, I was a fashion editor here. And when I moved to Europe, I got into the business side of things. I started doing trend forecasting for luxury groups like LVMH, Louis Vuitton, and other companies in France. And what I focused on before, there was a lot of, TikTok is where you get your trends now. Back in the day, you used to pay agencies and people like me, analysts, to actually do the research and figure out the go-to-market strategies, what the consumers were looking at, and how to actually push products. So that's what I did for a while. And that gave me a really good view of how the luxury market works, what people are buying, who the consumer is, how you appeal to them. I was able to use both my creative and business side of things to be the co-founder of a company in Europe. We were the first to do licensed accessory products for Apple. So we were doing cases, cables, all these other things with licenses and fashion and design. It was like the first time that it was done. And we were very successful. We got into Apple. Oh, that's my dog. Did we preamble that our pets are going to be making noises?
I know, I have my cat in the background too. So if you guys hear animal noises, you know.
Yeah, sorry guys. Everybody that knows me knows that we'll figure out that my dog is very present because he always comes up and barking at the big meetings or interviews or anything else. So if you hear him, he'll be here. We were the first to do that. We were at Apple. We were at Apple, third-party vendors, Amazon, all the leading electronic retailers around the world. We actually had worldwide distribution. And our biggest thing is that we were in department stores, fashion department stores. So Lane Crawford in Hong Kong, Selfridges in the UK. We were in Nordstrom's, Bloomingdale's, all the big retailers. That business was great. I learned so much. I call it my MBA in business because I really learned how to do from development, design, distribution, manufacturing, and obviously marketing, leading the different teams. So that took a big part of like my life in there. But once we sold the company, I was looking for something that had impact. And I thought it's cool to make money, but it'll be more cool if I can make money doing something that makes a difference. And it took me, it's not that easy to find, you know what I mean? Because they're like, yeah, I can make money here, but maybe this business has a negative impact here, all of these things. Just to share the story there, I volunteered my dog that you just saw to retirement homes and hospitals. I discovered how we age. I really I was shocked out of my mind. I really I look into the age tech space. I do a market study because that's how I know how to start business. I do a market study. And then I thought, okay, this is not my jam. I don't want to be just dealing with the status quo. Like, I don't want to look for better diapers or better data integration. What is the layer before that? And I found longevity biotech. I'm like, okay, this is amazing. It's about regeneration. It's about rejuvenation. It's about aging differently. And I'm not a scientist. So I'm like, what can I do here that doesn't involve me going to go get a PhD? Well, I thought they had a problem with branding and communication. I think there's too much talk about not dying, living forever. And I know that I respect the people that want to do that. However, if you want to hit an inflection point of mass adoption, I think people need to hear another story. So I focused a lot of that. It was the pandemic. Clubhouse was a thing. I was very active there. I started co-hosting these talks, the panels, the future of longevity. I was having Let's Talk Longevity, these like chats with all the founders, researchers working in the field. So everybody was accessible. Our Future of Longevity panel had David Sinclair, George Church, Matt Kiberlin, like all the major names, because they said yes to these interviews. So from there, that's where I found Vita DAO. I was there at their first chat with Tyler. And I thought, okay, this is cool because I understood crypto as a new way to transact, as a new way to also store value. And obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, to me, I got the whole point. NFTs, it was never really my jam right away. And when I found out what the DeSci was doing, effectively Vita DAO, which was the first bio DAO, I'm like, okay, this is amazing. So I got involved, became a contributor, but obviously from my work and knowing more about longevity and then understanding the DAO mechanisms, I realized there's a lot of opportunity in reproductive longevity. Because even in the DAO and Vita DAO, it was hard for me to like get the projects that were focused on that ahead. So I'm like, hey, this works. We can do it for like another DAO for focused on this. And then obviously reproductive longevity is too narrow. It moved to reproductive health, and reproductive health is too narrow in a way. So it was women's health. But then you can go too wide and too short, and people are getting confused. However, the big notion was that DeSci was starting. I emceed the first DeSci conference in Berlin. And I met a bunch of other women that said, yeah, we're really into doing this. One of them is Ines, like right away, like she also was thinking about their ideas. So I'm like, we can do this. And I already knew some of the contributors from Vita DAO that were interested in this field. So it's like a lot of the alumni became Athena DAO. There's still also Vita DAO. So I'm still technically a contributor, but one DAO takes already so much work that all you can do is like little things for other DAOs, However, it's just, I lost my trail of thought that, but the big thing about the opportunity in women's health, and I love going to this direction, is that we are considered a niche, and the reality is in crypto is mostly men. So I'm not, it's not going to be easy for men to relate to all these issues. And I think one big problem in women's health that we've had in general in the communication is that we make it about the lack of and not the abundance that could be at the other side. And one big thing with Athena DAO is like, there's a lot of abundance on the other side that we need to, for the crypto, the men in crypto to get, and then to get more women into crypto.
You were really in the trenches. So that's very fascinating backstory to hear all of that stuff. You were like actually one of the founding people here to create this. And I think you hit the head of the nail for a concern that I personally had, because crypto is a lot of dudes, finance is a lot of dudes, and you're kind of research, even academia. Yeah. So you're merging all three male dominant sectors together and then creating a DAO based around women's healthcare research and funding it. And you've been able to niche down successfully and like find a very strong community. Like I've been going through your Discord over there and everything, and it's like, there's a lot of people here who are very passionate about it. And for everyone watching this right now, make sure you guys give a thumbs up for this. I will put all of the necessary links down in the description below. So if you also want to go check out the Discord, it'll be there. I wanted to ask you kind of a question about somewhat of your background, but then relating it into the IP NFTs that a lot of these DAOs are generating, because that's kind of the giant cycle with everything. You fund the research, hope that successful outcomes come from that research, and then you tokenize the intellectual property that comes from it. And I know that that's got to involve some patents and some market research to find where should we actually tunnel down our focus on for specifically women's health. And I imagine that your background with having worked with a company that I imagine filed a lot of patents on designs and everything, and then your ability to search for markets and find market research and successfully. I'm curious, like, how that has been for you over the last 4 years, if you said you started this during COVID.
Oh, I started my journey to longevity biotech DSI during COVID because I was one of the first people. I mean, I attended that epic call with Vitalik and Aubrey de Grey, which at the time they're like the god of crypto and the god of longevity. And even that has changed the last 3-4 years. But Athena DAO was initiated on August 2022. So it's been a year and a bit. But I did start my DSI journey further back than that. So you're right that one thing that we do is we actually, as I said, women's health is too broad. You cannot say we do women's health and have people think women's health are so many things. So what we do is we narrow it down by cohorts. We focus on different areas of research. And obviously we started with which one? Reproductive longevity, which was ovarian aging. That was our very first cohort. I know 2 IP NFTs on those. And that's what we're doing. We're going through women's health in different areas of the least funded areas of research. And why was reproductive longevity so interesting too is because absolutely every woman, and obviously I'm being the disclosure here, women, of what we, without going into the other details of how we do now new calling women or cisgender and all the things, we have a disclaimer on our website to just say when we refer to the term women. But let's just say that not all women are going to have children, but absolutely all women are going to have menopause. And this is the least funded area of research by the government and also by actually the biopharma industry. So for context, there's $49 billion spent by the NIH in research. I think it's 49. Of that, only 10% goes to female-specific conditions. So only 4.9 billion. And of that, only 10% goes to fertility. And fertility encompasses everything from natal, prenatal, like so many other things. So the 0.00001 gets to ovarian aging. Ovarian aging impacts all women, but this is how much we're spending on it. So your brain just, that emoji with the brain like frying, that's literally what happened. Like I would think of all the time. So we wanted to start with obviously a market that has a lot of potential. It's been quantified at $600 billion. It's on our pitch deck, like we show it. McKinsey came out with a report this Wednesday, which January 17th, which really goes over how if you quantify the potential and the market is like $1 trillion if we were to spend more money in companies that tackle women's health issues. So we take a very targeted approach also to make sure that we really, really put the IP NFTs that we really have the most confidence will get to the next stages. And why? We don't have $100 million treasury. We don't have $49 billion, 4.9, 100, even 20 yet to be able to fund science at very early stages. We're not funding science that is asking questions. We're funding science that could potentially be a therapeutic, a pill, a diagnostic, something that impacts women's health, like as soon as possible. And obviously, the other appetite for trying to get into getting women, men, all of that, everybody involved in the DAO ecosystem is the fact of the impact that you can see very fast. So I just actually tweeted something about the Girl Scouts. They have like $200 million in their treasury and it's a nonprofit. And I'm like, how are they showing impact on those? Like it's sitting in their bag. And I'm like, imagine if a DAO, through the community approach, we raise like a treasury of $200 million, and with the blockchain, it's transparent. You can see the contracts. You can see where the money's going. It's going to the IP NFT, into all these other things. You can see what like is going in my wallet. The other part is measurable, right? Because you can measure impact with the blockchain as well. So we need to Girl Scout the Athena DAO.
I was just going to say that's a powerful comparison because like the Girl Scouts, like they're definitely impactful and they definitely help out like with the girls' evolution and like giving them self-confidence and everything, but it's not measurable. And there's like not a defined profitability that could come from it as far as like the large scale investors are seeing it, or as far as like people who are willing to funnel money into it. So for them to have $200 million in the treasury is definitely while it is like a step removed from what you guys are doing, it's super impactful to see how much money is floating around there for, well, half the population to use like that.
Well, I think the biggest thing that we want to say is that women's health is not it's not a niche because it's half of the population. And the other thing that I say a lot is, I know you can hear my dog crying over wanting to get something. I'm really sorry. My dog is super inspirational because he's obstinate. So until he doesn't get what he wants. One big thing is that we need to make everybody understand is that women's health is a massive opportunity because when women get involved in a cause, they're very powerful. And two, one thing that people don't talk enough about is the fact that some of the biggest industries are made by women. And what I mean by made by women is the second, third richest man of the world, sometimes the first, Bernard Arnault. What does he lead? LVMH. What is LVMH? A luxury consortium. What do they sell? Luxury. Who buys a luxury? Mostly women. Or who makes the decisions to say, yeah, let's have like my Louis Vuitton bag, my all these champagne. Oh, the champagne, I like that too. But a lot of he started with Louis Vuitton, right? That was like the first crown jewel, and now he has so many brands and the ecosystem. The richest woman in the world, it was inherited, but how was the fortune made? L'Oreal, beauty. Who buys beauty mostly, or who has been buying it for decades now? Women. So women, when you give them something they want or something that they perceive they need, they are your best customers. To me, it's insane that they've been so badly ignored in biopharma because they also make the household healthcare decisions, 80% of them. Your wife, your girlfriend, your mother would have picked up for you what pills to take, made sure you went to the doctor, make sure that like your children are getting all of those things. They are the ones purchasing these things. And we're actually not giving them things that they need. So to me, there's a big mismatch of market potential and what the reality is. And once we change the conversation, once we see more R&D, more money, more companies that are based in science, more pharma companies are actually going to get a women's health strategy. Oh, shocker. A lot of the biggest pharma companies in the world don't have a women's health strategy. It's like not existent.
And that's definitely like the largest impacts that any company or any solution can ever have is when you align market incentives like that. So it's like, if you know that 80% of the people that you are going to be selling your products to, or at least just interacting with in the market, are not being advertised to, or not being targeted correctly, or not being like given what they're asking for, it's like how that is a no-brainer. And so it's like, it speaks to your background that you're able to identify it so quickly and like come up with something like Athena DAO to really hopefully have a large scale impact on it.
Yeah, and I mean, the big thing is that when we were starting this, we were asked, oh, why don't you just do a foundation? Why don't you just do a fund? And I said, no, because the ecosystem, the DAO ecosystem, it's able to bring different stakeholders at different times. And the most important part is that it's able to bring the patient side of things so that they actually can act there. It's not like academia now. It's in academia and people feel that scientists are not accessible. we're having Discord community calls, events with all the researchers, all the science. We're making these clinicians, scientists, all these people accessible so that we change the narrative in science too. And then women realize that, okay, they've been doing chakras and crystals and all of this. And I totally understand it. Like, I don't shame women for doing that. But, sometimes guys do. It's like, LOL, she's like with her chakras or crystals. Yeah, dude, we don't have like this. I go to the doctor and he tells me I'm crazy. So what do? I have to go to Instagram or TikTok and try to find the women that are going through this because you're not telling me what's wrong with me. And instead of the doctor telling you, I'm sorry, madam, we don't know why you're like this, they tell you that you're crazy. And the reality is that menopause, for instance, happens to a woman, but it's like a 1-hour class for most MDs. Endometriosis, all these things, they don't even know what's going on.
I am going to pivot a little bit and ask about what kind of research you guys have actually begun to fund, because I know you have some things in the works, and you had sent a few of them to me, and they're very, very intriguing to actually like dig through and see how your approach to the Valley of Death that so many of these DAOs are set up to overcome, where the initial, and we go over this every single time I talk about DeSci, I feel like, but it's because it's so prominent. The initial idea gets a lot of funding and you can research it, and then that gap between creating an actual company and an actual product to hit the market with from that initial research is not super funded. So you guys are filling that gap very well right now, and I'd love if you could expand on some of it, maybe some insider knowledge.
So a big thing with Valley of Death is like a biotech term, and it's where companies go die because they're not getting the funding that they need to get to the next stage. It's like these, it shows you this valley thing where there's this gap to get to the next stage where you are going to succeed, but that's where you go die. And I say that with women's health, there is not so much a problem of, it's a different kind of Valley of Death, but the valley is way earlier. Like way, way earlier. And that is a huge problem because there's a lot of science that hasn't happened. There's a lot of data that hasn't been collected. Women were mandated in clinical trials only 30 years ago, in the 90s. So when you think of that,
that's insane.
The years that we spent doing research without having, and just recently, a researcher was like, Laura, since like I watched that presentation like a couple of months back, in my next clinical trial, I will, in my next trial, I am going to include female mice. It is more expensive, but thanks for like that glaring point. It is more expensive to deal with women, and that's why you have to be aware of our fertility cycle. You have to do more. You have to be cognizant of that, and it's supposed to be a protected class. So that's been the excuse every time. You don't want to affect our fertility. You have to deal with infertility. But you have to deal with it regardless because we do exist this way. So it shouldn't be an excuse. It should be just, it is what it is. So with that said, our Valley of Death is much earlier, but it also means that the opportunity is much bigger because we have access to, we've shown amazing research that if we could actually get some funding to them, they would, they're not even a research, they're companies. There's a ton of companies that don't make it to the next stages because biotech is also very male dominated. People don't understand the problem, or there's so much focus on the problem than the potential. For instance, there are a lot of things about women's health that are considered taboo or icky. And I get it. A dude doesn't want to know that a woman goes through this because it is what it is. But we have to really highlight the potential more so than the problems. And going back to the Valley of Death, our whole thing is to say there's a lot of amazing translational research and a lot of companies out there that have very promising potential, that the only problem is the funding because we're just not funding it. And we're like, there is a big gap between. So one big thing is femtech. Investors tell companies that have very good science R&D to go to biotech investors because that's not how their unit economics works for them. Femtech has been focused on digital tools, on SaaS, on medtech, on connecting doctors to patients, like that, for being a service provider. But that's not really changing the game of women's health. That's just providing a service. So the femtech VCs tell these scientists that have these companies that could potentially be therapeutics, not all of them, but a lot of them are not, they're not set up for their fund to be funding this kind of stuff. They're like, go to the biotech. And the biotech guy tells the company or the founder, this is femtech, go to femtech. So we're in this vicious cycle where like this massive glaring opportunity is being missed because the unit economics of the businesses are not being met by one or the other. And femtech thinks this is not my jam. Biotech is like, there's femtech, go back to them. So they're in the valley of death and dying simply because it's not understood, not because the science is not there or the potential of science that could be making it to an actual therapeutic is not there.
It's like when you're a kid and you're asking for permission to go outside with your friends and your dad's like, go ask your mom. And your mom's like, it's up to your dad. And you just keep circling like, damn it, where am I supposed to go?
And then you never go.
Yeah, you just get stuck. You stay inside and watch TV instead.
Yeah. And that's where we're stuck in vicious cycles and we need to create a primordial cycle. And that's where we think Athena DAO and the DAO ecosystem is so well placed to do that because we're focused on science first. Our thing is we really want to get the science out the door so that more amazing female entrepreneurs or male entrepreneurs get going these companies that are based in rooted in science and can get the investment dollars from biotech funds or funds that really focus on on therapeutics, things that are going to require years and a lot of development. The other thing that I want to mention is that I've talked to femtech funds that tell me, well, one of the reasons that some of the ones that are well positioned to invest into these kind of things the problem is that some of them are coming with amazing ideas, but they're not coming with the science behind it or the data. And they know how expensive it's going to be able to get that. So they're like, I can't invest on this because that's not how funds are set up. So the very powerful tool about DeSci is that we get the community together and the community tries to push this forward. So that's a very exciting part is the community approach is crowdsourcing. It's saying governments ignored us, business ignores us. We are going to make this happen.
Do you think, personally speaking, that Athena DAO will serve as that stepping stone to take that idea and then hand it off to the next people in line? Or do you think Athena DAO will be able to take it all the way, take an idea all the way to market?
Oh, so the dream is that one day we take the idea to market, but that's a vision for long term. The whole notion that we would be able to, from the lab to a woman using the product, obviously that's one of the things that DeSci talks about. Obviously that would require for DeSci to grow a lot over the next 2-3 years to have treasuries as significant as some of the other DAOs that came before focus on DeFi, because science is very, very expensive. And I want to stress that we are very focused in having things that come out through regulatory channels. Why? I personally wouldn't put anything on my body that hadn't been screened by somebody and that hadn't cost a lot of money to develop. Sorry, that's just me. If you want to go and biohack on yourself, that's great. There should be those options for people to be able to do that. But I personally think that you have a more powerful business proposition if you can actually make it through regulatory body work, frameworks, and also then have your partners later that could make the new pharmaceutical company of the future happen, but that you're going to have everybody that you need to have your ducks in a row to make this happen there. But they don't say, oh, but this was way too crowdsourced. Your IP didn't have any protection. Phanomatic 20 and Bull Run 25 had access to these files. Sorry, but this is insane, So there's something about also maintaining some of the old school or legacy frameworks. It's still a bit that I think it's also very important.
It takes a lot of time to shift things, especially just to, like, the medical field. Not It's still on an archaic system, so it's like you're not only just like skipping the internet entirely, like you're going straight to blockchain technology, which is
Yeah.
definitely something that's going to take some time and some friction to get
I mean,
resolved.
and blockchain, people that are into blockchain are really like the futurists. They're people that have been online for or understand the dynamics of so many things. I mean, this whole thing that happened with what was it called? The GameStop thing, right? When you think that it was just Reddit communities YOLOing and going FOMO, not so much FOMO, but sticking to their guns on like principles that they understood how markets work. They understand how crypto work. I mean, they understood mostly, not the crypto, but they understand how markets work. Crypto users understand a lot of these things, and it's a very small percentage of the population. So we are at the top of what I call in strategy for, like, let's say fashion and luxury. You have this pyramid, and you will need to start here so that you have mass distribution much later. And it's like that pyramid approach, right? For something to be major, it has to start very small and very vetted, very well, your key users or like the top. We're still at the very top of that pyramid. As much as we all think that a million people care for what we're doing, a lot of people don't care for what we're doing.
I know there's so very little people who actually understand what's going on. And I think GameStop, it's funny that you bring it up because I really view GameStop as like a collective consciousness moment where people like really became aware of how the financial system worked and how they were being taken advantage of, and like collectively just all of a sudden decided to come together and like stick a middle finger to it and be like, look, we're starting to realize that you guys are playing this shady game. And I am so looking forward to the day that we collectively wake up to how like corrupt and really just amoral a lot of the healthcare stuff is in our current system. And I think DeSci is starting to look like that initial spark, but I could go down a very tangent right now that might get YouTube to take the video down. So I don't know that it's worth it. I would.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, when you talk about this, you can go into your own, because you get the people in crypto that are very anti-pharma, right? And then you have like Vita DAO that took Pfizer's money.
Mhm.
And there's always a balance between, as you said, the like what I call legacy and incumbent, and that is a history of business. And I think that that's going to always be part of the dynamic. And you have to, I do get the notion of the people that are purists and that they do really dream that one day we could do this without it having to deal with legacy systems. Maybe we will. And I think that's also like a very interesting approach to things. I also do think that for this side to gain a lot more legitimacy, to really have, to really grow, you're going to have to start playing with, be very mindful of regulation. I mean, Coinbase is very regular. They have gone through regulation through and through. And that's what we need to do if we want to stay at the level of Coinbase and not be like SBF or end up in those situations, right? And at the end, it is what it is. I think that crypto's here to stay. It is a lot of Fortune 500 companies are using blockchain technology already. It's not like a crazy thing that is not being used. It's just not advertised in enterprise. So it's just about us holding our ground in terms of trying to keep these systems decentralized, trying to keep them accessible, and obviously making it still a big opportunity for people to actually do change how they do things and feel like they have options. Because unfortunately, a lot of people feel over the past 10, 20 years, this new, millennials that we talk about not being able to buy homes. You just like, God, I remember that we were setting this and it's like, oh, I just got this new place, which is great. But you know that a lot of millennials are like not able barely to like buy their first house. There's a lot of not a sense of optimism. because all they hear is how the economy is bad, all they hear about, and we need to change those narratives, but they also need to see where the opportunity and where they like actually why there's reasons to be optimistic about.
There's always going to be opportunity. And I have one kind of like food for thought for everyone who's watching and even you, because it's something that I've really been thinking about lately. If Vita DAO, for example, or even Athena DAO, any of these DeSci projects are successful in prolonging human life and making it so that we live very healthy lifespans, long and healthy lifespans. And so humans could end up living to be 150, 200 years old, and not that far into the future from now. Like, there's a lot of people saying that there's someone who is born right now who's going to live to be 150 or 200 years old. And in that world, in my opinion, if we do solve for death, which it looks like is very possible, not in our lifetime, probably not, but if we do figure a way to solve for death, that means people are going to be 500 years old. And are we really going to go into Walmart and see a 500-year-old bagging our groceries? Probably not because of AI, but that paints a perfect picture. Is there going to be a door greeter that is a 500-year-old Walmart employee? I don't see a way in which DeSci can be ultra successful in prolonging human life and we still have a capitalistic structure.
For longevity. But DeSci is doing other things, right? Okay, like where I told you in our chat before, anyone who's excited about going to Mars, including Elon Musk, we're going to need the technologies that we're going to be working on to go there.
I'm glad you tied back into that. Yeah, I was trying to come up with the word to circle it back in.
Yeah, the artificial womb. I know that for some people it is, especially in crypto, because a lot of crypto people are libertarians. And for some reason, they love free markets, but they don't love biology being free market. They, it's like, no, we should, like, they're very trapped, which I find shocking because it's like this weird contradiction, but humans are they are contradictions usually. However, if you're a techno-optimist, you have to be into things like the artificial, because that is like the next stage. IVF is like what we're using now to have baby, artificial reproductive technologies. The next generation is going to be IVG, in vitro gametogenesis, which is like taking your stem cells from your skin and be able to create the eggs. So these technologies, they need to happen to colonize Mars. Why? Because the trip is too long. Because of like the cancers, we're gonna have to figure out cancer to like go to space, because you're gonna get from the radiation, the cancers are gonna happen. So even when you arrive in Mars, there's not gonna be enough humans to potentially quote unquote colonize. And I know that even for people, the idea of colonize is like very negative, but human imagination is massive. I think if you listen to why Elon is so big in this, for instance, is the fact that he is very much about the human spirit transcending what we are now and going beyond like Earth. He has these theories about how we really are the most advanced and we should go next. I mean, that's Elon. But for me, the big thing is I grew up in Mexico part of my life. And in Mexico, you saw children having children, like 12, 13, 14-year-old girls. Why? Because the Catholic Church, up to a point, forbid contraceptives. They didn't have access. They were raped. I mean, you name it. So these girls were having children. Abortion was not legal at the time. It is now. But we're talking about biology being random. Like these girls were fertile. They got pregnant and boom, done. And there we are. The children are there. They don't have the money. They don't have the education. They don't have the ability to nurture that life. And yet, there's a growth of like a ton of women in their late 30s and 40s that have the capital, the partner, the maturity, the need, the want to have children, and they can because of biology. So instead of denying these women the opportunity, because I mean, we're not going to backtrack the train of what happened with the pill. Aiming for the trad wife, sitting at home. I know that it exists. I know the power to those women. The thing is about options. Those women should have options now. And why are we denying them those options to have children when we could actually be populating? But this whole like, oh, we're depopulating, women are crazy, they need to go back to having kids. No, we could be populating because tons of women want to have kids, but they can't. That is the issue, not the fact that they're staying and having a career. That's not the issue. It's just, it is what it is. You're not going to send them back to that notion of romanticizing having kids at 25. And a lot of women, even if they want it, they either haven't found a partner or don't have the money. It's just the new reality that we live in. So we need to adapt. So we're having a call for submissions this summer. We call it the Deep Tech, Reprotech project submission, where we're going to focus on these amazing new technologies that are going to happen. And they're already being researched. There are companies in the making. We think it's so important that the crypto guys, the techno optimists, all of that get that this is not just about solving endometriosis or problems that you're not interested about. This is also about humanity, the population problem, and really technologies that are going to get us to the next stage. And my dog really agrees. So he's like barking about that.
I'm curious, could you expand on the artificial womb a little bit more? Like, what is the current limitations, or what are some limitations that you see moving forward? Like, would you be able to take one of those teenage girls and kind of like remove the fetus at an early stage and implant it into the artificial womb? I know last time we had talked, you'd even mentioned about like taking some of the tissue from the ovaries or the uterine lining and like freezing it and being able to like reimplant it. So I'm curious if you would speak on some of the developments in that.
Yeah, so for women that have cancer very early in their lives, one of the first things that they ask them is to freeze their eggs. And in some countries, one of the services that is also available is cryopreserving their ovarian tissue. So young ovarian tissue from healthy young ovarian tissue is taken, cryopreserved, and the whole notion is that years later, when you're ready to have a child, they actually implant it back and it regenerates the ovary so that it's ready for, when you're ready to have kids. So this is very exciting. However, it's very invasive, and that's why it's not being done. And I was talking to a researcher who says he knows somebody who's looking at doing a clinic network in the U.S. to do this. So it's going to be a thing. It's going to be expensive at the beginning, and as I said, it's very invasive because it's an operation. But for women that have cancer very early in life, this is one thing. The next stage for the artificial womb, the biggest issue, and it's already, some companies already have got what you would call the MVP. And I really want to stress one thing, because there was an article recently in a Canadian publication about a doctor that works in artificial wombs. He says that we are an extension of an incubator, which keeps the baby alive. Like an incubator is literally an artificial womb. So people need to really get it into their minds that we already have an artificial wombs, and we've had them for decades, because an incubator is an artificial womb. It is keeping the baby warm. It's giving it right now in very rudimentary ways the nutrients it needs to keep growing when when they are born too early. So the artificial womb wants to start the stage like much earlier, back much more back. There are companies that already have some sort of MVP, but the biggest issue with the artificial womb is placenta, the function of the placenta, and the umbilical cord. Obviously, for people that are like, oh, this is a nightmare, this is awful, this is taking the power away from women. No, this is giving the power back away. This is giving women the opportunity to have something that they couldn't have naturally. So it's not taking anything away from them, it's giving them something. First part. Second part, it's true that our bodies are incredible machines. It's the most sophisticated machine in the world. I don't care how much they say about AI. The reality is that the way we develop and the function of our tissues, cells, molecules, everything is incredible. So one other issue is going to have mimicking obviously what that relationship that's having with the biological mother to the growing baby in this artificial setting. So figuring out those things is still going to take time, but it's going to happen because there are people working actively in this. And as I said, incubators are rudimentary artificial wombs.
Yeah, you got to break down that perception barrier that a lot of people have, because most people get kind of fearful when this synthetic biology stuff starts coming up, and it's mostly just from a lack of understanding. So having the ability to get on a platform and like talk about it and just help educate, right? I put something out.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I'm thinking of this Twitter account and I wish I remember where they like, it's like Museum of the Night. I forget what it's called, but it's basically articles from when the cars were going to come, the problem with like how the horses, there was going to be an issue or bikes, and like basically everything that was an advancement, there were always the naysayers that like imagine the most absurd scenarios. And the reality is what I love when I see people like denying this is, first of all, you own crypto, some of them. And it's not in crypto that I'm saying is a crypto rose, but it was technology. You are able to transact and use these amazing tools because some scientist somewhere back in the day sat there doing math and numbers and figuring out how this will work realistically. So that's technological and scientific development. And when you think and they're sitting there next, this is an abomination, blah, blah, blah. How do you think X and that app and that phone that you're sitting on the subway hating on this women or these scientists happened?
It's been every single time. I even saw a video not that long ago in which it was when the first laws came out against drinking and driving, and they were interviewing people on the street coming out of a bar, and they were like, "This is stupid. I've been drinking and driving my whole life. I've never killed someone." Like, they were like, "Well, how are you gonna? That means people are gonna be walking home at night now instead of driving home. And like, what if they get robbed at night? This could be way more detrimental." And I was like, "Oh my God, guys, there's always people who are gonna go against it."
Totally, 100%. Or when you started asking people, oh, when the internet was going to come out, no one's going to use this.
Yeah, and now look, they're like, this is a fad. This will be a bubble.
Yeah.
It's something that I know everyone who holds crypto can resonate with that a little bit, because you get ridiculed constantly online. Oh, these tokens are useless. Well, not if you're holding Athena DAO token. I'd love if you could go over some of the use cases that you guys have. I know it's a governance token. Do you have anything else you could share with us for what might incentivize people to hold the token?
So a very, very important thing that we have to push and to be through regulatory frameworks as well is that it is a governance token. When you get the token, you get to vote on the future of where the treasury goes in terms of the science. So everybody who has an Athena DAO token gets to vote on the projects that we submit for funding, and they can get to have their voice go. One of the things that we're going to focus a lot in the next 12 months is the utility, meaning how do we get more people to want the token, not just because they're buying it, but because they see value in owning it. And not because they see value in owning it as an investment so much, but because of it's a new way to transact within our community. I think something that's very important is obviously the bounties, the things that you get, and bounties for people that don't, I mean, you're in crypto, anybody who's in crypto gets bounties, but the big thing is if you provide a service, you should get like something right in return. And one of the things that we're piloting very soon is a job board, but for biotech, for women wanting to get into biotech, women's health research biotech. So PhDs or academics that are coming out of school, because we have a lot of them in our science and deal flow. And I found this, like 3 of them were looking for jobs. I'm like, we need to do this. We need to onboard like partners, hardcore biotech companies, women's health biotech companies, and create that funnel for researchers to go into industry. Longevity did this very well. I'm not taking credit for like, oh, I'm at the thought of this. I know that they've done that. And that's why now really great talent wants to go into longevity. So we need to do that for women's health. So one of the examples is if you don't own a Athena DAO token, and in the US, technically, we're not like selling to US holders because of the regulation. Like you can still be an American and do a bounty, like do something for the DAO where you get 5 tokens, which is the equivalent of like what you need to access the job board. So that we really get people to understand that this is about creating a mechanism in which you're part of the community, but it's really about holding a token. The value is in the access and the voting and being able to be part of the community and part of the voice that moves the community forward. And that's like a very important part because One thing is the getting our treasury from the token value. And another thing is making sure that the token has utility and that people see that there is opportunities with the token to have access to a lot of the things that we're building within the DAO. We're also going to, we started already piloting, but without having to have tokens. Talks with researchers, book clubs where you get the book, like with the people that are like talking about the science of women's health. And in the next 6 months is going to be like, okay, to like going to this event, it's going to be 5 ATH. You don't own ATH, don't worry, do this bounty. And then you become part of Athena DAO. So it's like a very way of solidifying it's like your membership. And you want to have it because it makes you a member to have access to all these things that we're building within the DAO.
You guys are very, very community orientated. Like when I clicked on your link tree in your guys' bio, I was blown away at how many resources you guys have there for your community, people who are actually involved there. You were hosting classrooms in the Discord, educating everyone on how Web3 works, on how to analyze research articles on their own so they can become effective researchers and actually be able to contribute. So you guys are very, very much so taking the community aspect seriously, which I love to see. I wish more communities across the world would do that, prioritize their members, because with a strong community, you get stronger results.
Well, if we could mimic what happens on Reddit, right? That's the dream. When you think of it, a lot of it, Reddit, and I understand why there's so much value and people are still crazy about it. The platform it's not user-friendly at all.
No, it's not.
It's scary. It's like, oh, where do I like fit in here? But anyone who's on Reddit, it's like massively committed, right? So we're trying to mimic, we want to create that vibe, but in women's health. Like we have to find, and it takes time because women find their health information on Instagram and TikTok. And that's centralized. That is like one day Meta can decide that our account is not ours and click, it's gone. Facebook the same. But that's where women are going. And we need to figure out what is the thing that's going to make them understand, come here, let's do all of this because you're going to find all of the value here with us. And it's not centralized. It's like really community approach. And it's not the same way in which decentralized organizations work. And it takes capital. It takes time. It takes having, obviously growing. And that's one of the reasons that we think it's such a big opportunity. And also we really want to make it across the board for the crypto community, which is still mostly male dominated. This is not about women. This is about like humanity in general. And if they're not interested into it, they have to think of also, but I know how women are powerful consumers when they want. And this is not to degrade women or to say, think of it as just as a market, but I don't think it is worth thinking about their pain points. So let's appeal to the fact that, look at a Stanley Cup right now.
Oh my God. That is going crazy. The demand for Stanley Cup is unforeseen, but it's women
Imagine if we are able to, with a bigger treasury, more projects funded, even more community things, we get to do something where we are able to focus, zero in on one thing, like Crocs or the Stanley Cup or whatever these things. Imagine.
I can't imagine. It's going to be a fantastic time. I'm curious what kind of roadblocks you see like in your current horizon that might prevent you guys from getting there. Anything that you see coming up that's like, oh, we're going to have to buckle down for this.
So I think the biggest roadblock is making sure that absolutely every stakeholder in the funding, from the actual crypto community to the biotech VCs to eventually pharma, does get on board with realizing the potential. The roadblock is not in our determination. It's not in the fact that the market is there. The market is there in the fact that the science is there, a lot of potential good science, translational science and projects. Those are not the roadblocks for us. The roadblock is the other side of the equation. Where, oh, because I'm not a cool white dude, and then no offense to, like, I'm not into that, but you know, that is like, oh, you're a genius. Like, you're young, you're cute, you're amazing. I'm going to like throw 1 million at you because you're just that. We don't have that issue, right? It's like a nice issue to have, but the roadblock is it's hard to relate to people that you're not even the same sex, because we have our own things, women, and men have their own things. And the trust in women that run businesses or women that have ideas or women in science or markets and whatever is not there because they're not relating to it. So the relatability or the thinking this is an issue that matters is one of the biggest blockers on why the money's not being pulled on it. Because you have to relate, you have to have the confidence. And I'm not saying that there's so many amazing VCs there, very like future, I mean, from, you know, the Teal, what do you call it? The Teal Fellowship, tons of amazing women, like tons of them. So there was never a question there. Balaji, I mean, he's funded amazing projects and very amazing reprotech stuff like Orchid. Vitalik as well, you know, he's given like this project that is totally open source. I always speak of these women because they suffer of long COVID. And I think he sent them like $500,000 donation, which and it's so well deserved because these women are like literally doing open science 24/7. So, you know, the excuse like really big minds are putting money in women regardless if they're women or not. So we need more people like that to be like those big minds. They're like, I don't care if you're a woman or you're a man or I relate to you. This is important. This is genius. I'm going to keep putting the money there. And we need more of that. That's the biggest roadblock.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling that right now. A lot of people looking for money. It's just like the current economic climate's definitely dried up a little bit, but I think it's still out there. Like money is not a limited resource. It's
no,
still
there's a
out
lot of
there.
money in the world.
It's just a matter of getting the eyeballs, right? So
Yeah.
it's perfect.
And I think one thing that sometimes is we've done a lot of execute, because we're always asked that one thing that we're like, but you didn't. It's like, oh, but have you seen everything else? So you don't have to relate to it to see the market potential. That's the, you know, not even that. That's the biggest thing. You don't have to relate to it. You have to see $600 billion market potential in menopause. It's not sexy, but $600 billion market potential. It only gets this much funding from biopharma governments. That doesn't make sense because we're not meeting market potential. So I think people in crypto are also much better at seeing like new dynamics. And that's why we also chose to do Athena DAO and this ecosystem. Because it's like the fearless, you know, the kind of mentality of, hey, I have this capital, or I have this, you know, this sense of wanting to be in communities, and this is a way for me to evolve, like at the first layer.
Yeah, it's the right spot, and I think it's at the right time too. Now it's just a matter of executing, which you guys are doing fantastically. Again, everyone watching, if you enjoyed this, please hit the thumbs up. I'm going to put all of the necessary links in the description. And Laura, if you have anything else you want to talk about, or it's something that you think is crucial for everyone watching to know that we didn't touch on or skimmed over, and you want to dive a little bit deeper into it, now is the time. Or if that's just to show yourself or anything else, your choice.
I think the biggest thing I want to show is joining Athena DAO. If you're not even sure, and this podcast will not convince you, just join the Discord. See what's happening. I'm very available. Ask questions. We're an open community. We do a lot constantly. So if you're curious about, oh, how do I know that this community is actually executing or doing something, or what are they doing? There's a ton of things that we have going on. We have our first decentralized fertility study. So that's it's a qualitative study. We are looking for as many women, you know, send your girlfriends, send your wives, send your daughters, your girlfriends that are not, you know, just your GFs, to look at the study. Because we are asking questions about fertility, how much women do understand the fertility journey. And it's kind of a pilot to run how we're going to actually do then studies with our researchers on Athena DAO, decentralized, and trying to figure out how we start actually working more together with it within the Web3 ecosystem to be actually a way where we're collecting, to be one of the first platforms to be able to collect open source data for research and women's health. In terms of in Web3, very particularly women's health, like looking at ovarian aging libraries, looking at the data that researchers are going to need when they're actually doing their own clinical studies. We have a ton of educational stuff. If you're just even curious how we're what our IP NFTs are about, we have a YouTube channel. We're not active. I told you, we're not active on TikTok, and our IG is slowly going there. We've been so Web3. It's like Discord, Twitter. But if you're not curious, if you're curious and you still don't understand the potential, just join and ask the questions and see what we're doing. I don't expect everybody to relate, but I do want everybody to really see the opportunity here. And that's the biggest thing, that women's health is not a charity. Women's health is an opportunity. And I believe that in decentralized science, there's a massive opportunity to fill a gap that hasn't been filled before in this particular area. And that's why we're very excited. So join Athena DAO, ask the questions, see what we're doing, learn. And I really hope that this is not only the big narrative for 2024, but that we see the dream of a therapeutic going to market through like the entire journey through blockchain. And that would be amazing. And if we do it first, that'll be even better.
I think it's just a matter of time. That's just a simple function of time. Thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate you for taking the time to be here with me.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to more of these.
I hope that you guys also thought it was a fantastic conversation. If you did, please hit that like button. And on your way down, go ahead and check out some of the socials that I'll link in the description. Everything you need to check out more about Athena DAO will be linked below. Your time's your most valuable asset. Hopefully this was worth investing into.